Hey, hello to all the farmers. I hope you're all doing well.
So, gentlemen, you asked me to make a video about mulching, about how I use the mulch-laying machine to create this year's vegetable garden. Let's take a look at everything. I use different strategies and sheets. We set up the machine in a different way. I'll tell you all about it. Let's go see the work that's been done, the distances I used, and later I'll show you in the warehouse how I set up the machine because I made some changes. Simple ones, but they worked really well. Come on. Well, come on, but you got what I meant. Simple. All right, let's go. As I told you, the important thing with mulching was to be able to standardize everything. A new machine is coming to ridge all the rows, so that means with this machine I'll go through and remove all the weeds that will grow. This is an important technique because this way we'll remove, like, look, this little weed here, which is good, you know, it's here, the machine passes, it's a ridger, it removes it, and basically the weed is gone. This is important because otherwise we would have to use pesticides or something that kills the weeds, but we don't want to use those kinds of products, so we'll go with the mechanical method. The sheets we used are 1 meter and 10 centimeters. Inner wheel should be 135, outer 165, just to give you a couple of numbers so you have them there. We used different sheets. Generally we used 40x40 sheets. The holes are staggered, so there's about 50 centimeters between one hole and the next. And then we used single hole sheets with 60 centimeters between each one. There's already a video out about what I'm going to grow there and so on. We left some spaces free because we're going to do the sowing with the seeder. If you missed that video too, I got a walking tractor with a seeder that we're managing to set up. Look, it turned out well. I have to say, I didn't expect such a good result. The mulch sheets are properly covered at the edges. Let's step away for a moment and head to the warehouse so I can show you how I set up the machine.
Maybe I've never told you this, but around the little field there are 400 linear meters of hedge, and I like to see it nice and squared off.
In fact, someone might say to me, well, there's no need to cut it now. But no, look, turn. Look, you see the little tufts are starting to come out and so on and so on. And I like to see it all nicely trimmed.
And as you know, for gardening, I'm relying on Milwaukee with all the power of the Forge batteries, which are their top-notch batteries with endless durability.
Why do I like this hedge trimmer? Because it can cut every branch, because it's pretty light, but above all, it has a very, very long bar. This especially helps me not to go in waves, but to keep the same straight line. I'll leave the link here in the description. Keep in mind that there's an offer for all gardening tools. Go check it out. Now, I'll show you the modifications I made to the mulch layer because it's no small thing. So the point is that you use the mulch layer like any tool, and then you try to customize it a bit. Let me show you the first thing I did. I added this little roller here, see? It's very handmade, all made with recycled materials, see? I even threaded the screw. I mean, it works, you know? It works. There's even some professionalism. Let me explain why. Because these rollers here are too far apart. The roller originally attaches with these levers and basically holds onto the roll. The problem is that I use slightly smaller rolls. 500 meters, I never even get to 1,000 meters. So what happens? The roll would slip down, but by doing it this way, it's fine. A small modification, but maybe it wouldn't have been bad to be able to turn and tighten the rollers. That would have been nice. In addition, I had these side guards made here, basically drip tape guides, let's put it that way. Why do I need them? Turning the cardboard rolls repeatedly made them fall apart, so I went to my neighbor who works with engravings and materials. I had these rollers made, which weigh nothing. See? And I have to paint them, you're right, but we used them in the field before. Because do you see the effect it was having? It's not pleasant. Also, let's go check the setup, because as I told you, the more you use the mulch layer, the more you understand it, but it all depends on the setup. The setup we used, damn, it really bent there. This is the first thing I noticed. This pole bent on me now because the ground is a bit hard in some spots. Inside these were hollow. I put an iron core in them to reinforce them, but it's still bent on me. We'll straighten it out later. How do I set up the mulch layer? Very simply. The two front furrow openers create a furrow. The furrowers need to go to the mulch layer is very simple to use. We have the roller in front, which is what flattens the soil so that it's smooth. The two front furrow openers open a furrow where the mulch film sits. The two wheels, which need to be slightly tilted, not like this, but like this, must run exactly in the furrow. And then we have the two covering units, which are these ones back here, that go and close everything up. If you use it like this, the job gets done optimally. Of course, the trick is to get the first row set up perfectly. Once it's set correctly, generally we don't have any problems after that. What I'm seeing here is that on the two front furrow openers, I'll show you from here, these handles, which are very convenient because you grab and unscrew them, don't hold well. Also, if you look, I made a modification to these tubes. You see, I put a metal core inside because it happened, like in that case there, that it bends. So now I have to hammer it all back into shape. That said, I'm very happy with this machine. It really works well. You just need to find the right setting and then it works well.
A good purchase. Record. Good purchase. Hello. 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 Hello.
The soil wasn't in great shape. It was a bit coarse. In fact, some parts weren't pulled tight properly, but oh well, let's not complain. How did we handle that pass? We still went straight with the tractor, so we didn't bury the tarp. The drip tape was underneath, like in this case, leaving us more spare length. Afterwards, we buried the ends. We went to cut more or less in the middle of the tarp and then cut the lines in half. We'll lay out all the pipe to connect it now. I'll handle the irrigation in the next few days since we're having some trouble. But the fastest way to get all this mulched is with two people, because the mulch slayer really needs two people to operate. I tried by myself, but you just make a mess. It took us about 45 minutes because when the machine is set up properly and you know how to use it, the speed and the work come out perfectly. Here's something else I noticed here. Speed matters a lot. We were going in second gear, low range, slowly, nice and steady. The work comes out clean, and anyway, we don't have to cover hectares. It's better to do a job slowly and carefully than to do a bad job. I also did some experiments. Come, I'll show you. This sheet was one I still had there. It's paper mulch. The work that was done, you see this here. What should the positive thing be? That the cardboard, first of all, is paper. And when it's buried in the ground, after a while it breaks down and that's it. You don't pull it like that. Well, paper, because of its own characteristics, can't really stretch well. And so either the soil is very, very sandy, very, very fine, or the result you see isn't that great. Anyway, we're going to make our melon beds. Let's see what happens, if it holds water well, if it doesn't, and so on. In this, plastic is unbeatable. If you look, these here are still some remnants of biodegradable mulch film that we used with the mulch layer. That's why I say plastic is an unbeatable material. Don't let yourselves be fooled. Plastic is not a problem for the environment. The problem for the environment is the rude people who don't pick up the plastic. The bottle cap, nothing happens. We can keep using it. The point is that it needs to be thrown in the bin and recycled. Now we do the same thing obsessively because we use plastic, because this plastic here is all collected afterwards. It's taken to a collection point and it's recycled again. And the plastic stays intact even after a season, so we can pull it up all at once without leaving any fragments. The biodegradable sheet, which was 99% gone, come on, 98% of it disappeared, it decomposed. There are some parts that are still present, and this thing bothers me a bit, maybe more for aesthetic reasons than environmental ones. But I'm not crazy about it, and I want to try others, because it's still a great solution. It saves us a lot of work. I mean, removing the sheets is a tough job. I repeat, the problem we have with plastic is people's lack of manners. The problem with microplastics, on the other hand, is plastics left in the environment for years and years. I mean, we leave them in the sea, they stay there and break down. These sheets stay for 6 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, we all, or most of us, drink bottled water that probably sits for 2 or 3 years. We know that plastic lasts, so let's behave ourselves.
So probably they break down a little bit, but that's not the real pollution. Please, this is one of the points I want to stress. Even I, who am very careful, notice this every time I move around. Look, this here is a piece of a faucet, you see? No, a piece of a steak. I notice small pieces of plastic. The only thing is, oh, but it's all up to me today to pick them up, throw them away, and that's it. Now, a few little tricks if you're using mulch. What do we do? Tomorrow or the day after, depending on the time I have, I'll go and set up the whole system. Once we've set up the system, I start it without closing it so that the pipes get cleaned as much as possible. Once that's done, We run the irrigation system for 2 or 3 days so that there's plenty of moisture under the sheet. Of course, this doesn't apply if it has rained before. Why?
Because I've noticed, maybe not during this period, but especially in June and July, if there's excellent moisture under the mulch sheet, the plants take root differently.
If we start irrigation after transplanting, they struggle much more. Then comes the season of the doors.
I've released a new video showing what will grow and how we'll manage it this year. We're also sowing for the first time and the spinach is sprouting.
Let's leave it at that. Not bad. We're doing really well with the salads.
Now we're going to do all the other transplants to manage our farm more and more efficiently. Have you planted your vegetable garden yet? Write it in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. There's one daily. Everything shown is here. Now let's plant the seedlings and get it done. We're farming together, so join in, farmer. See you next time. Bye, everyone.